This is Tom Duty, middle-aged American living in New Jersey near the Lincoln Tunnel. If you were to visit my website, you would type Howdy Doody into Google. You'll find the correct spelling of the famous puppet. You then combine Tom Duty in a Google search for my site. Kim Young-sam, former president of South Korea, dies. New York Times, CHOE Sang-HUNNOV, CHOE Sang-hun, 21st November 2015, Seoul, South Korea. Kim Young-sam, former president of South Korea, has replaced the last of the country's military leaders, purged politicized generals, and introduced a landmark reform aimed at transparency in financial transactions. Died on Sunday. He was 87. Mr. Kim, who was president 93 to 98, died of septicemia, heart failure, said Byung-hee, chief of Seoul National University Hospital, where Kim was admitted with a fever on Friday. He had been treated for a series of strokes and pneumonia in recent years. Kim, an outspoken critic of military dictators from 1960 to 1980, was one of the three Kims. The others were former President Kim Dae-jung, former Prime Minister Kim Jong-pil, who played major roles, often relying on regional support from their home provinces during South Korea's turbulent transition from dictatorship to democracy. Mr. Kim was born 1927, son of a rich anchovy fisherman on Geoje Island, southeast coast of South Korea. During a time when all the Korean peninsula was Japanese colony, he was elected to parliament at age 26, developed a following as an opposition leader, famed for his daring criticism of Park Chung-hee, who seized power in a coup in 1961, tortured and imprisoned dissidents before his assassination in 1979. Mr. Park had Mr. Kim expelled from Parliament for criticizing his dictatorship. During an interview with the New York Times in 1979, Mr. Kim's colleagues resigned from Parliament in protest, and huge anti government demonstrations broke out in Mr. Kim's political home ground in the Southeast. Mr. Park was assassinated by his spy chief later that year. Mr. Kim's travails continued when Mr. Park replaced by Chun Doo-hwan, an army major general who engineered a coup to fill the power vacuum left by the patron's death. Mr. Kim was barred from politics and put under house arrest. He once staged a 23-day hunger strike. Dawn will come even if the rooster is strangled, he once said, a saying that became a catchphrase for Koreans yearning for democracy. Mr. Kim was as well known for a lifetime rivalry with Kim Dae-jung, a fellow opposition leader from the southwest Jeolla region. They both ran for president in 1987 in South Korea's first democratic election. The split the opposition vote, allowing Mr. Chung's handpicked successor, Roh Tae-woo, another former army general, to win. In 1990, Mr. Kim merged his party with Roh military-backed governing party in a move widely condemned as a betrayal of pro-democracy forces. The merge was a political marriage of convenience. Mr. Roh wanted a parliamentary majority, and Mr. Kim, who distrusts Kim Dae-jung as much as he detested the military dictators, believed he would never win the presidency as long as the other Kim competed with him for the opposition vote. Once in a governing party whose top hierarchy included many former generals, Mr. Kim and his followers, vastly outnumbered by rival fractions, but all seasoned veterans in a party politics, quickly expanded their ranks and dominated the party. Mr. Kim beat Kim Dae-jung in 1992 election and became the first civilian leader in South Korea in more than 3 decades. Although he won election with the support of the military-backed party, Mr. Kim did not forget his roots. He purged a clique of political ambiguous army officers who went by the name of Hanahoe, which roughly meant an association of one another for all for one. Bound by their regional prejudice and sponsored by military dictators, the membership of the group were so powerful they blackmailed and even beat up members of parliament. The officers were forced to retire. Mr. Kim's military purge culminated in the arrest and conviction of Mr. Chung and Mr. Roh on mutiny and corruption charges for their roles in 1979 coup and a bloody crackdown on a pro-democracy uprising the following year, as well as for collecting hundreds of millions of dollars each in bribes from businessmen. Mr. Kim later pardoned them and released them from prison. Mr. Kim also barred South Koreans from owning bank accounts under pseudonyms. That change is considered one of the most important landmarks in South Korea's long-running campaign against corruption. Bank accounts under borrowed names had been widely used by politicians and businessmen to hide slush funds. But Mr. Kim's time in office was also marked by missed opportunities. In his memoir, Mr. Kim said he persuaded Bill Clinton to cancel the United States plan to bomb North Korea's nuclear facilities in 1994 for fear of war. Looking back, Mr. Kim said in an interview in 2009, "I think the North Koreans think they can say whatever they want because no matter what they do, the Americans will never attack them." In 1994, nuclear crisis was diffused when President Jimmy Carter met with the North Korean leader at the time, Kim Il-sung, in Pyongyang, North Korea's capital, and brokered that would have been the first summit between the leaders of the two Koreas. But Kim Il-sung died of heart failure in July 1994, 2 weeks before the meeting was scheduled to take place. Fate played a trick on me, Mr. Kim. If I had met Kim Il-sung, I would have changed the nation's history. The achieving that had eluded him, becoming the first Korean leader to hold a summit meeting with the North, went to his rival successor, Kim Dae-jung. In 2000, Kim Dae-jung flew to Pyongyang and met with Kim Jong-il, Kim Il-sung's son and successor. That year, Kim Dae-jung was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. By the time Kim Young-sam ended his 5-year term in early 1998, he was sad, disgraced, and a lame duck. In 1997, South Korea's proud economy swallowed the humiliation of a 58 billion bailout from the International Monetary Fund. The Asian financial crisis, Mr. Kim was criticized for failing to prevent the crisis by overhauling the country's powerful family-run conglomerates, which had expanded on reckless borrowing and with cozy ties to the government. With thousands of people losing their jobs, Mr. Kim stopped jogging in early morning, a daily routine that he had never missed until then. Mr. Kim's reputation was further tarnished when the arrest of a son on corruption charges. His governing party was so unpopular that South Koreans were ready to hand over power to the opposition for the first time, and they did when the election of Kim Dae-jung in late 1997. And New York Times. This has been Tom Duty, middle-aged American living in New Jersey near the Lincoln Tunnel. If you were to visit my website, you would type Howdy Doody into Google. You'll find the correct spelling of the famous puppet. You then combine Tom Duty in a Google search for my site. Thank you for listening. Have a good day, good evening, or restful night's sleep. Ciao.